Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is December 25th, 2024. And so it's a Wednesday. That means it's a news day. But today is a special Christmas episode or holiday episode where we're going to just cover all the news that we've seen in the past year or so where AI for good or, AI being used for good. And so I was asking everyone beforehand, what's the number one story they want to tell? And so I'm going to throw it over to Brian. Brian, what do you have?
Yeah, well, first, Beth, Jimmy, Andy, Merry Christmas to all of y'all, and Happy Hanukkah to everybody who's celebrating, or as well as other holidays around the world. If you are not celebrating, happy to be here with you guys. And so, yeah, my first news story is kind of an asterisk because it's not necessarily, a news story to everybody else, but it's this show. And so I think that's good news that I'd like to start with. It's AI related. And here we are again a year later. This is our second Christmas doing this. I think Beth and Andy held down the fort last Christmas because I couldn't log on, and Jimmy, I think you were in Hawaii, and so yeah, it's nice to see four of us here. I think Beth is happy to see that. But I just wanted to give a shout out to the show and all of us. Aaron and Carl aren't on the show right now with us, but to them as well, because this show has continued to grow and we've stayed, although we haven't hit every goal that we've wanted to hit, there's things we want to do and grow and stuff. We have remained consistent. And I think that's good news, because the one thing I knew that would set us apart and help us grow over time would just simply be consistency. And here we are on Christmas Day, 2024, and we have put out a live show of some quality. I won't say they've all been home runs. Every day. I wasn't pointing at you, Beth. Man, Beth took that one personally. was not pointed at Beth at all. We put out a show every Monday through Friday for 360, 70 episodes or something like that. We're climbing towards 400. We haven't missed one. And that is the definition of consistency, is that some way, shape, or form, because we have a group here, a great, amazing group of people that I get to see most days of the week, are able to show up. And we've always managed to have at least two, like I said, last Christmas when it was just Andy and Beth doing it for most of that week, and holding the fort down and making sure another show goes live. And so I just want to give us a little bit of a pat on the back, because I think it's well earned. We've passed almost 2,500 subscribers on YouTube. That's not the only place we're growing. I just saw recently, I think Beth or Jimmy, you shared that we now have passed a milestone, so says YouTube, as far as 10,000 watch hours. And so just thinking about all the people who have joined us over the year and a half that we've been doing this, and will continue to. We've also watched, this is a great shout out to all the people in the YouTube comments, because we've watched this year alone how our live stream folks in the comments showing up day in and day out, like Jen and Cisco and Jude and so many others that are there. Gail's been showing up a lot this year.
Gwen and Jeff, who are here today. If you're here today, go ahead, say hi in the chat.
Merry Christmas to you guys. Yes, all of them. We've watched that number grow, and it's really changed the show, right? I mean, I think you guys would, we get to see those live comments. We're like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Or people are bringing up stuff, and they're like, do you know about this? And we've literally gone in perplexity things live on the show and brought that in, and it just changes the dynamic. And now it's not just six of us; it's like six of us plus our extended family and friends. And so we'll get into all the news here, but go ahead, Andy. Go ahead.
And sometimes they go off on a tangent that is distracting, because it's very interesting.
Yeah.
They go somewhere else, and we're like, oh, I'm trying to pay attention to what you're saying, Brian. But look what's going on in the chat over here.
I know. So and that's only going to get, it's going to go more. I mean, there's been multiple times, I would say, in the last 2 or 3 months where I've been like, hold on, I've said it live on the show, like, hold on, I need to scroll back, because between the time I saw the comment and I wanted to bring it up and the time that I actually get to it into the conversation, there's 15, 20 more comments. Like when I tell you, Jen was the only one with us live early on. Thank God for Jen. And then also big shout out to Beth, to you, who really took on the comments and made sure that you were interacting from the show's standpoint. And so big props to you, Beth, for taking that on and being that moderator to make sure that we're interacting. It's going both ways, right? We're having a conversation together. We're not just speaking to you and expecting nothing back. So anyway, just wanted to give a little bit of a quick at the top of the show. Props to us that it is good news. We've been able to reach, like we said, thousands upon thousands of people at this point on all our different platforms. We've remained consistent and on our initial charter of showing up every day, not claiming to have all the answers, but being willing to have open and honest conversations, to be wrong, to be swayed, to have good disagreements and great arguments along the way. Perplexity would be one of them. Originally I was like, I don't really see it. Now I use Perplexity all the time. That was because Andy on a show let me see a different angle, and you guys have all done that, and Carl and Aaron as well, who aren't here. So that's it. That's good news, right? It makes me smile. And as I think back or reflect back at the end of this year, I'm just like so excited for what's coming up in 2025 and all our new goals that we want to hit as we continue to grow. But we may be sitting here 1 year from today looking at 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. It is just not out of the question that we would grow that fast. So thank you to everybody who's shown up over and over and over. Thank you to everybody who's ever subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? We're amazing. You should definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel or on the podcast channels like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. So that's it. All right, Jyunmi, back to you.
That's a great opener. Yes, extremely grateful for everybody who's been on this journey and joined us. Okay. Unless Beth or Andy has a story that they're really itching to jump off to, I've got a couple. Now, I have stated multiple times that I am a big fan of AI and science, and usually the science that we're seeing with AI is for a good. It's to solve a problem for humanity. Now, this story just came out. I was surprised that, just in time for this episode. But this story is about how this one researcher came up with a new term, machine psychology, and the whole basis of this research, right? This dissertation for their second PhD, coming out of, if I'm pronouncing this right, Linköping University, which I think is in Sweden. Robert Johansson, he came up with a psychological learning model combined with types of AI, right? Different types of AI. And so what this is supposed to do is, where a lot of AI that we've seen is large language models like ChatGPT, but this really breaks the logic or builds a logic framework based on principles. So it's principle based, right? And so because people learned by their experience, right, and they can take that experience and then apply their process to it, their internal process. They keep it with them and they can build upon it. So what this proposes is that we creates a machine psychology, so that they build AI or types of AI learning around a psychology bent. So it's more of the mind of an AI as opposed to these current models like large language models. Now, what he's calling the logic system is NARS, or non-axiomatic reasoning system. But the interesting parts is it's designed to operate without complete data, limited computational power, and in real time. So these are some of the hurdles, right, in terms of coming to, trying to achieve AGI and things like that. And so he believes that down this line, if you can crack these issues, then you'll really have achieved a full AGI. Now, we've already seen huge announcements from like OpenAI about O3 and the reasoning levels, and able to, on that one benchmark, reach the level of like 87.5%, when the benchmark's 85 for human equivalency. So we're definitely down that path. one of the things that I thought was interesting about this was, and how I think it'll be AI for good, is that this gives us a method, or it seems like it'll give us a method um, to really gauge and set our alignment goals, right? And that's been a big conversation in just AI development, is alignment, especially with stories of like, oh, AI is broken out of the guardrails, and people are able to jailbreak and things like that. And so if you take it from the psychology standpoint and you put in these principles, then your alignment should theoretically, or at least in I'm my supposition is that you should be able to create a stronger alignment, and I think overall that our relationship with AI tools will be stronger because of it. And so that's my top AI in science, AI in good story. I do have a couple more, but I do want to hear from. Andy, go ahead.
Weave on that, which is
about weave. All right.
Yeah, so it's about alignment, and one of the things that came out of OpenAI among the fire hose of things that they announced was an announcement about using what they call deliberative alignment, using their advanced reasoning models. And that what that is it's a training program that teaches a reasoning LLM the safety specifications that it needs to follow to maintain alignment with human interests. Now, before reasoning models, you might basically had to have some sort of hard-coded rules that would challenge a prompt that was, being given to it. And often it was the case, if you've had this experience, that it would, deny using that prompt and say, sorry, I can't do that for you. And it was a little too rough on that because those sort of hard-coded rules weren't very effective. But now the reasoning models can use this deliberative approach, having understood all of the safety objectives of the model that the developers of the model give it. And it then creates a very highly precise alignment with those objectives, those safety regulations, let's call them. And so O1, the first reasoning model from OpenAI, and remember, I'm going to lead into another story I want to talk about that will highlight just the amazement that O3 represents in terms of advances compared to O1, and we'll look at that progression. But this is deliberative alignment is achieving high compliance with safety benchmarks. And so very, very important development, but it's kind of on a back page of OpenAI.
That's amazing.
All right, go ahead.
So what I want to, it's sort of a weave. I want to highlight a story that came out recently, like in November, maybe. No, released in December 2024. It was a cooperation study, and it was really good news specifically about Anthropic, because the way that the study was done, I believe that they were testing Gemini, and here we go, Google's Gemini 1.5 Flash, OpenAI's GPT-4o, and Claude's Sonnet 3.5. And basically they were playing a donor game where AI agents shared resources across multiple generations. So they were testing cooperation, like how, what are the tendencies? And what it found was that Gemini Flash and OpenAI's GPT-4o become competitive over time, but Claude 3.5's performance improved further, developed more complex strategies, and found ways to cooperate the entire time. So there wasn't there wasn't a thing where it like it understood that cooperation was going to win the entire time, which I find really interesting because, most of these are trained on the same material. The internet is not a bed of great cooperation news stories or content. So I think a lot of that is likely come down to their constitutional AI. And that is very interesting to me. So good news, and definitely good news for Sonnet 3.5. All right. Gauntlet Throne, who's got a weave from what I just said?
I do have a little bit of a weave since you mentioned Google. I did not actually know about this site, or maybe we covered it, but it was in one ear and out the other. But apparently, Google has an AI for good website where they have all of the projects that they're involved in that have some sort of social impact or whatnot. And so let me see if I can call it up here. Yeah, ai.google/advancing-ai/social-impact. Yes, not the easiest not the easiest URL to work through, but they have all kinds of different different touch points. Like they have programs that work on access to AI. They have climate programs, economic opportunity, government innovation, healthcare, learning and education, and science. So you might have heard of AlphaFold. AlphaFold is one of these projects. And I thought, hey, this is a great jumping off point if you are interested in AI for good, or AI in science, or AI in any of these fields. So yeah, just ai.google, and they have all of these various programs here. And I was really impressed when I came across it through a Perplexity search, of course. And it's all about collecting all the programs and projects that they're trying to apply AI to help overcome challenges. So I thought that's a great site. Thank you, Google. I'm glad that exists, and I'm glad all of those projects exist. I do have another one, unless Brian, do you have another story you want to talk about?
Well, yeah, I have a few short ones. I mean, nothing that we need to dive deep into, but just in the idea of, AI for good in 2024. As I was doing research for today's show, I really wanted to try to surface those stories sometimes that aren't that slip through the cracks, and sometimes they shouldn't, because they're really big steps. And we've talked a lot on the show how Sam Altman has said it too, how we kind of get very used to very powerful AI very quickly, and so we all kind of go like, oh yeah, wasn't that a thing? Didn't that exist? But these are some of the things that happened in 2024. So it falls into a lot of common buckets here: literacy, analytics, healthcare. Okay, so if you look at those three bubbles, but from the healthcare side, in 2024, researchers at MIT developed an AI model called Sybil that's able to predict lung cancer risk up to 6 years in advance through a single low dose CT scan. This is a great, and there's many stories like this. This is a great example of AI for good in terms of its ability to pour through billions and billions of rows of data very, very quickly, where that might not have been capable before, and compare and contrast and analyze all the things you would expect it to do. But it's also its ability to read correctly CT scans. You just think about the implications of not only this for lung cancer and what it means to be able to predict lung cancer risk up to 6 years earlier. How many, quite literally thousands of lives that could potentially save. Just this one technology, this one AI tool could potentially save thousands of lives in the near future if it's not already having an impact, but as it gets to the masses, right? So I think there's a lot there in the AI, in the healthcare. We've talked about that. Jimmy, you talk about it a lot as well, where we're just seeing AI have almost immediate impacts because of what these, your MITs and these different research labs have been able to do with it. On the logistics side, there's a lot of stories, a lot of supply chain that's really, really important, because what it's doing, for instance, in different African countries as well as other places around the world that wouldn't routinely have access to vaccines, where there's zero dose, but they call it zero dose vaccine. They've been using AI to quickly look through the logistics of that data and ensure that the right supplies and supply chain get to the right children and people who don't have vaccines, and again saving probably thousands if not millions of lives, simply because we now have AI tools that can really look through the complexities and make sure that the right resources are where they need to be and they're not stockpiled somewhere else where they're not going to be nearly as helpful. So that was a big one. And then if we just look really quick into like agriculture, I saw several stories from 2024, again, in the last 12 months, where in agriculture, we've talked about the lasers that can pinpoint weeds. And of course, that cuts down on pesticides being used, but also in agriculture. And again, the logistics of it and being able to pour through mountains of data and be able to say like, okay, the AI is now helping farmers predict when crops are perhaps not getting what they need, but earlier in the process. So they're able to course correct earlier and perhaps save that crop for the year or whatever the case may be. So there's just all these really good stories. I mean, AI for good. I mean, and there's a whole bunch of literacy ones that we can get to if we have time, but where you're just seeing people go, this is kind of like what we talk about in the show, is what I get excited about, is these are experts in these areas. You're assuming, whatever, agriculture, lung cancer, detection, right? And they're saying, okay, we understand this problem. And now we're looking at how AI can be used as a tool on top of expertise to hopefully make for a better good. And so hopefully when I look at stories like MIT and the CT scan, that we're going to have a huge adoption of physicians, doctors around the world who don't see this as a threat to their well-being, but see this as an easier, faster, cheaper way to help more people. I think if you're a insurance company and stuff like that, you should be excited about this, especially if it's done with a single CT scan and the cost will be done lower, but we can get to preventative measures earlier on. That's good for everybody. Obviously it saves lives, but it's also a cost savings. So hopefully we will see a lot more adoption as we see these tools, but that's the most, I mean, look, yes, we talk about the ChatGPTs of the world and what Meta is doing. We probably focus on that more on this show, but there's all these amazing stories in AI that are happening in the last 12 months that are going to have like significant impact and collectively probably save millions of lives just from 2024 advancements in AI. That gets me very excited. And I know that's what we're talking about today, but those are some of the ones. That's kind of a broad brushstroke. I could go into each one of the stories, but that's really what I sort of picked back from it. Beth, did you have like a similar, I know you and I were both looking at the 2024 stories. Did you have a similar kind of feedback from it?
I did. I did. And one of the things that happened recently, and so if you've seen news stories, I think we covered this, but I will just highlight it again. AI can detect neurological changes in babies using video data alone. So it's very non-invasive. And it prevents death. Like it's seriously their continuous neurological monitoring in the NICU. So these babies are already having a hard time. And it provides the real-time insights into infant health that have not been possible before. And if we think about what the NICU usually is, right? You can't be watching the entire time. Like a human cannot be watching the entire time each infant in the NICU, right? Mm-hmm. And this adds that level. It was trained on 16 million, maybe, like videos of what that would look like if an infant was going into trouble. But it's that kind of stuff. So it's detection, like Brian was talking about, on scans and that kind of stuff. But it's also learning. We're at a point where like AI can learn from video and be able to easily slot into like, pay attention to this one. This needs to be this is something that's happening. And as we know from other stories and our own experiences, AI is able to detect not only like more, right? So you can use one AI to look at many. It's also able to detect those changes sooner than a human observation would. So it gives you more time, gives you more able to do more as a human. Really exciting.
Yeah, those are the kind of stories. Both Brian, what you covered, and Beth, what you covered. Those are the ones that I usually like to highlight anytime that data comes out. I do have one more, unless Andy, you kind of look like you're chomping at the bit. You got a story that you really want to cover?
Mine's a little longer. I'm going to take a few minutes, so go ahead.
Okay, all right. So last one that I got queued up actually came out a couple days ago. A company called Tesuan Tesuan Scientific. This came in from the TechCrunch. So a couple of these college guys got together. I think they're from MIT, and they worked in NASA, and all of the proper laurels and everything for a couple of founders you want put together to work on some super science. But they were trying, or their company that they built, Tesuan Scientific, is it's a company that wanted to build robotic AI, or embodied AI, essentially, right, to do scientific tests. And we've seen, from various stories where, in different universities and research labs and things like that, that a couple of different groups have come out with essentially robotic testers, right, or at least the first versions, the prototypes. And so they're kind of going along that line. But they had their aha moment, or their light bulb moment, when they saw GPT-4 and the emergence of the what's the word I'm looking for, capability of diagnosing, or that diagnostic component, right, where they're able to make those determinations. Because beforehand, AI didn't have the scientific intent, is what they call it, where it was able to see the image, or take a picture of what they're looking at, or video or whatnot, and then apply it to whatever the parameters were, whatever the intent was to make that determination. And so once they saw that it could be done, or started to be done, with GPT-4, that's where they kind of jumped off, and they said, yes, this is what we really want. And so they're developing robots. Well, I guess a little background is, most scientific robots, the ones that exist that can do the little pipettes, with their robotic arm, and just do hundreds or thousands of tests, saves an immense amount of time. But it takes an immense amount of time to switch the parameters, reprogram that robot. And so it had to be done where you brought in a programmer to, the scientist told the programmer, these are the parameters, and then had to reprogram the robot to then do that new test. Apparently, switching tests is very common in part of the scientific process. And so now they had an opportunity to develop a way to go through the whole process without having to do the reprogramming, or keep it to a very minimum, right? Combine that with being able to create their models that allow for that scientific intent result to be plugged in there. And so now they're developing these robots that will do the entire scientific process from start to finish, right? So it's not just one portion, or just the testing, right? So their aim is to create a robotic AI scientist. So someone who can do the whole scientific method from start to finish, and change up whatever experiment that they're doing on the fly. So exciting stuff, because this is the part where robotics and AI and automation really come into play with science is because it's a lot of testing over and over and over and over again, right? Like thousands upon thousands of tests to get the proper data set to to do it enough to have a fair assurance that this is the result that you're getting and it's replicable and things like that. So if you can have your robot in a box essentially that can do those tests and switch out tests relatively easy, then that means you can get through all of that tedium, the tedium of science really, really quickly. And that will push scientific advancement and scientific exploration even further into coming up with applied solutions like to cancer or environmental issues or these really large human scale or humanity scale type problems. And so I think that that qualifies for AI for good.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So, go ahead. Sorry, Andy. Sorry. Go ahead.
I have another quick one, and then
Okay.
and then we can tee Andy up. So this is about AI doing conservation, and it's specifically conservation in India in terms of not killing elephants with trains. So the AI system that I believe is run by looks at things through drones, halts the train to prevent collision with elephants crossing the tracks. So in drivers of the Kamrup Express are alerted in time to apply the emergency brakes, avoiding the harm to animals. And the AI-powered safety system is, for this specific story, prevented the collision between the train and a herd of elephants crossing the tracks in the northeastern state of Assam. This system has already averted 800 potential elephant collisions in Tamil, Nadu, and Assam. And I am so sorry in the way that I'm saying those, but I hope that's close that you know what I'm talking about. And the point of it is that it detects the wildlife and it sends alerts to train operators. And they're planning to expand to all surveillance across all elephant corridors in India's East Central Railways, because of course you're doing great because you're saving wildlife, but you're also doing great because you're saving the trains and potentially the operators. Yeah,
Jeff said the same thing. He's like, "Can you manage the carnage of a train elephant collision?" Don't get me wrong. I'm all save the elephants. I mean, not I want to see the elephants. I think it's amazing, but also like the disruption to everything that the train is probably doing in like
right.
What does happen if a train collides with a herd of elephants? It's not good for either party, obviously,
No.
in saving the animals, but also not good for the disruption of the train line and stuff like that. So that's actually really, really cool. And I imagine it's probably good for other wildlife as well, which is like, again, such an easy to comprehend, easy to do, but just not necessarily capable. We weren't capable in the same way before AI because for probably a lot of reasons, because like you said, they couldn't quickly enough process the data coming back from the drones. We didn't have an ability to process that fast enough to actually turn into a result, to an actual action happening. And to your point, we're talking about hitting emergency brakes. Well, how long does it take for a herd of elephants to cross a road? So we're talking about probably mere minutes from the time that it's identified in data to the time that somebody's pulling the brake, if not maybe less than. I don't know what the time frame is. That's something that a human can conceptualize and say, well, yes, okay, the data is coming and satellites and all that, but we just probably didn't have the way to either do it quickly enough, like efficiently enough, or perhaps cost effective enough. And unfortunately, there's that side of it too, which is we'd like to not hit elephants, but it's prohibitively expensive to put this in place. And maybe it couldn't be in the past. And now through these AI solutions, we're finding that more and more of the data is able to be processed faster, resulting in real time, almost probably near real time actions, which is just super, super cool. That's a really cool story, Beth. I didn't catch that one, so I like it. Okay. I know we have stuff with Andy, and then you wanted to.
Andy, what do you got for us?
Okay. So this is from a recent article in Harvard Business Review. And it's about using OpenAI's ChatGPT 4o in a business strategy simulation. And the role that is played by all the participants in this business strategy simulation is the CEO. And now they're going to be scored on how well they perform as the CEO in the outcomes for the company that they're CEOing in this competitive landscape that's in the strategy simulation. A very sophisticated strategy simulation that's imitating the automotive market, right? So there's lots of different components to the automotive market. And there are companies out there that do these strategy games for the development of, corporate strategy. And this one is all AI driven. And then in addition, what they did is, the way this worked is this happened between February and July of this year, 344 participants, undergraduate students, graduate students, and executives, senior executives among those 344. And one of the players was GPT 4o. Okay, well, how good is 4o as a CEO? I'm going to get to that. But let's think about how good 4o is back in February to July of 2024. This is before the emergence of O1, which was the first of the reasoning models. So it doesn't even have those reasoning capabilities, except in sort of, rudimentary fashion. So think then about what we just got as a good news delivery as a Christmas present from OpenAI, which is O3, which blows them all away. How far in advance of GPT-4o is O3? Well, on the ARC AGI thing that we talked about, this is the benchmark test for determining whether a model is getting to the point of being at artificial general intelligence. GPT-4o scores 5% on that test. 5%. O1, the first reasoning model, which we're not talking about in this CEO simulation, scored 32%. And then O3 scored 88%. Okay, so you can see that O1 and O3 are way beyond what GPT-4o does. But how did 4o do in the business simulation? It consistently outperformed top human participants. They selected out the best of the graduate students and the best of the executives and compared 4o to that. And it did it on nearly every metric. It designed products with surgical precision. It maximized the appeal of the products while maintaining tight cost controls. It responded well to market signals, keeping its non-generative AI competitors on edge, and built momentum so strong that it surpassed the best performing students' market share and profitability 3 rounds ahead of where they achieved their max. Okay, it was stellar in its performance with one exception. It got fired faster than the other CEOs when black swan events were thrown into the simulation. Okay, it had developed a routine that was not sensitive to unpredictable shocks, to shifts in customer demand, and so on. But it wasn't a reasoning model. It didn't anticipate those things or do any kind of prior thinking of simulation to attend to the possibilities of those things. So it was missing something very important for a CEO, which is maintaining some flexibility when market conditions are going to shift. So you've got to not just be, wow, I'm going to just keep making higher and higher profits with my brilliant strategy here. But what happens if, and we don't know what happens, right? So they got fired faster. But I wanted to draw this back to the good news that the reasoning models would probably ace this competition in superlative ways, including in the ability to anticipate black swan events and preserve some capacity to respond to those things. Why? Because, these advanced reasoning models, and O3 particularly uses this concept called test time compute. And I'm going to radically simplify my only emerging understanding of what test time compute is to say one of the key parts of it is a Monte Carlo simulation of all the possibilities. That's what costs that test time compute. The energy and computation effort that's put into that takes it minutes and minutes, or perhaps even for O3, hours of deliberation.
Mm.
That's being done to anticipate all these possibilities and evaluate them and then choose the right path. Just like AlphaGo did for Go, right? Just like Big Blue did for chess. It's calculating all of these different possibilities in the future. That's what test time compute represents to me, although there are other aspects to it. Importantly, self-reinforcement learning about what works and what doesn't in its simulation process. So I'm really excited by the news that we can basically dispense with the job that I had for a long time, get rid of the CEO. They won't go away, but they certainly shouldn't be worth hundreds of millions of dollars when they're going to be superseded by reasoning AI. They'll still have a role there because you always want a human in the loop, and a deeply experienced one. But instead of paying them $100 million a year, let's pay them $10 million a year. That's plenty, right?
Yeah.
When they have AI assistants. And so they, along with all the other knowledge worker positions out there, are not immune to the advent of reasoning AI and artificial general intelligence coming into the fold as CEOs.
I love this, Andy, because I think this maybe is the beginning of the end of these massive buyouts where CEOs come in and they're guaranteed millions of dollars whether they succeed or fail, and you got to be thinking to yourself, like, what's the pressure to succeed in a lot of these cases where you see these huge buyouts and they're there for 6 months or 9 months and they're paid $4 million by HP to go away. And when you start to see more of these, I think modern day CEOs like you're talking about who are using and leaning on in the right ways the advantages of AI in order to make better holistic decisions based on their experience and their ability to direct traffic, so to speak. I hope this is a step in the right direction, to your point, of not these bloated contracts that get out there where there's just a churn, but the business isn't getting better. The only person getting richer is the CEO at the top who's long gone and on to their next project, So that's really, really cool. And Gwen just said anyone with a 1 billion. Oh, Andy with 1 billion. I thought Gwen was saying something else about the 1 billion one person company. My bad. She was talking about the lottery. I read that too fast. That's what I get for trying to read comments too quick. No, by the way, Gwen, I'm still here. So no, I did not win the 1 billion last night. I love Beth and Jimmy and Andy, but I may not have shown up today had I won the 1 billion.
Okay. For people who were there at the beginning, Brian started the show with gratitude for all of us and all of you. And this is amazing. And now we're like, if I win 1 billion, I don't know.
I would have just shown up. Here's how you would have known. I would have been in the same frame as Andy because I'd be on his farm. And I'd be like, what's going on, Andy? And he'd be like, why are you here? And I'd be like, because I won $1 billion. There's no reason why I can't be hanging out on your farm today. Merry Christmas. Down. I brought presents for everybody. Don't worry about it. So if you see me show up in Andy's frame, you know something good happened, and I'm very gracious. Filled with gratitude and also line pockets worth money. Hey, Jimmy, before we go.
I have two quick ones that are good news stories. Let me just knock them out. Waymo, like robots, these are embodied robots, these cars driving around. They are continuing to significantly outperform human drivers. And in a recent study, 88% reduction in property damage and 92% reduction in bodily injury claims compared to human drivers. So that's a great story. And then the other one is, deep neural networks operate as a mathematical simulation of neurons called perceptrons. And in order to simulate a large, huge network of neurons like our brain, there's a lot of energy consumption that's associated with that. So they wire together these perceptrons, and that is that's an inefficient method. Why? Because that perceptrons are just abstractions, and running a perceptron network on GPUs requires first translating that network into the language of the hardware in the GPU. Remember, GPUs were designed originally to do visual effects in gaming, right? So graphic image generation. But they are a special kind of hardware that can do this process. But now, in a report from MIT PhD student has developed a way to create a neural network on hardware using logic gates, which is a kind of hardware function, using logic gates as a simulation of a neuron. So what the effect of this is that it does away with a lot of the matrix multiplication costs of GPUs translating the simulation into the actual code that the GPU can run. So now, using something that's native to the chip, the logic gate, somebody's developed, in association with MIT, have developed a way to actually do that, which will dramatically reduce the energy cost and make edge computing even far more advanced, because there isn't all this network transition, from the cloud service of the representation of the neural network back to the local device, but it can all be built onto the chip. Another amazing advance that'll, give us plenty of capabilities in the future.
That's amazing. I love that story. That means like real robots way faster, because it'll live right there in the
just
hardware.
banging a bunch of these chips together. If a single chip can run a full deep neural network very efficiently, now give my robot, please, like 100 chips on that thing.
Well, then do they become like SD cards, right? So that you can swap them in and out and upgrade and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's
yeah. And then we're talking like skill sets. This can become skill chips.
Yeah.
Once you've written, oh, hey, let's develop this skill, plug that in. So to all of our cyberpunk fans out there, you know what I'm talking about. Direct neural interface, skill chips, the whole thing. Okay, yeah, I'll stop. All right, was there a couple more stories?
I just have one quick more one, which is about the trends in education. And one of the trends with AI in education is a more inclusive materials. And we're going to see that more and more, because the ability to create inclusive materials is so easy now, right? And so they're like, hey, we can put an audio version out. We can add subtitles to things. We can add transcripts to things. And one of the things, again, if you pay attention to disability accessibility and accommodations, is all of the things that they've named are things that help non-disabled people learn better as well, right? All of those things, if you make it more inclusive, you've made it more inclusive for everybody, and not just your students that need accommodation. It's the same as like shovel the ramp first, because if you shovel the stairs, only the people who can walk upstairs can walk up the stairs. If you shovel the ramp, everybody gets up. Woohoo!
It's a good analogy. I've never heard that, though, but that's a good analogy. I'll steal that at some point.
Brian.
Yes. Oh, this is just a quick share, but I just thought it was funny. So, Beth, if you can pull this up on screen really quick. This was from a year ago, like almost immediately a year ago. It happens to be the four of us. So, wait, it was there. It went. This is a game called One of These Things Doesn't Belong Here. One of These Things Isn't the Same. Now it's it's the old song. Now it's time to play our game. What was that? Sesame Street? Well, now it's time to play our game. So yeah, this was a year ago, and I'd like to say it's the hair that makes my face look rounder, but I don't think it's the hair. So this happens to be the four of us from a year ago, and it just made me crack up with the hair and no hair. So I thought I'd share that really quick. But that's it. That's all I had. It's not even a good news thing. It just made me laugh from a year ago. That's it.
No, now the bonus is, can you name that streaming platform? Right? Like, can you look at that and identify the platform we were streaming from?
Not good news. Not good news for 24. Bad news for AI in 24. Get your streaming platform
Stream
right, people.
something, stream or something stream. One of those combos.
Yes, come on, AI people out there, make a better AI streaming platform for us.
It's true.
Please.
It's true. Yeah. If there's a new startup streaming service,
We're all ears.
yes, come talk to us.
Yeah.
We'll tell you everything that everybody wants, especially us. And yeah, let's get into some sort of deal. I'd love to try it out.
We'll literally do thousands of hours of free live
Exactly.
data
Exactly. Yeah. We'll give you the KPIs that will please your board.
That's
So
right.
yeah. All right. Unless anyone has anything else, I think that's been a great special holiday issue of AI for Good, the AI News Day. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and spending your Christmas day with us. It's always great to see all of you. I love all the conversations that are happening in chat. We love to see you. So thank you very much. So today we're going to wrap up with, if you haven't liked and subscribed to us, please do. And also go to thedailyaishow.com to sign up for our newsletter. The newsletter is awesome. Always some great info in there, and also helps you link back to any other shows that you might have missed in the last week or so. And yeah, everybody, happy holidays and aloha.
See you guys tomorrow.